No mother dreams of watching her only son get married from beside the garbage bins. But there I was, in my carefully chosen navy dress and grandmother's pearls, sitting at a wobbly table near the kitchen exit, perfectly positioned between two industrial dumpsters. "More water, ma'am?" The young waitress, Lily, according to her name tag, gave me a sympathetic glance as she refilled my glass. Her eyes darted to the elegant reception hall visible through the glass doors, then back to my isolated table with its mismatched tablecloth and single setting. "Thank you, dear." I took a sip, grateful for her kindness. The envelope containing the house deed and car title felt heavy in my purse. For months, I'd been planning this surprise, Kevin and Vanessa's dream home in Oak Ridge Gardens, plus a new SUV to replace their struggling sedan. The fruits of my hard-won settlement, after 35 years at Bellamy Textiles, where my fingers had bled on fabrics I could never afford. Through the glass doors, I could see my son laughing with his new in-laws. Kevin looked handsome in his tuxedo, so different from the skinny boy I'd raised alone after Frank died. Vanessa was radiant in her designer gown, the diamond earrings her parents gifted her catching the light. The Martinez family might own just a mid-sized furniture store, but they'd spent lavishly on this wedding, determined to impress. I hadn't seen Kevin since the ceremony. He'd kissed my cheek quickly before being whisked away for photos, promising to find me at the reception. When I'd arrived at the hall, I'd searched for my name card among the elegantly arranged tables, finding nothing. That's when Vanessa had appeared, picture perfect in white lace. "April, there you are." Her smile hadn't reached her eyes. "We had a last-minute seating issue. The event coordinator will show you to your table." I'd followed the coordinator outside, confusion turning to humiliation as she'd led me to this makeshift arrangement, hastily set up beside the service entrance. "I'm sorry," she'd muttered, not meeting my eyes. These were my instructions. Now, sitting alone while celebration roared inside, I finally understood what had been happening these past months. The canceled Sunday dinners, the way Vanessa tensed when I mentioned family traditions, how my calls increasingly went to voicemail, the subtle suggestions that perhaps I shouldn't mention my factory days around Vanessa's friends. I'd attributed it to wedding stress, to generational differences, to anything but the truth. My son's wife was ashamed of me. Lily appeared again with a plate of food. "I thought you might be hungry, ma'am." "That's very kind, but I've lost my appetite." I smiled to soften my refusal. "Tell me, Lily, has my son asked about me?" Tall young man, dark hair, blue suit. Her uncomfortable expression told me everything. "No, ma'am, not that I've heard." I nodded, a strange calm settling over me. For 35 years, I'd stood at a sewing machine for 10 hours daily, breathing lint and enduring verbal abuse. I'd lived in a dangerous neighborhood because the rent was cheap, allowing me to save for Kevin's education. I'd gone without medical care, proper food, any semblance of a social life, all so my boy could have better. And now, I was literally seated with the garbage. The revelation struck me not with anger, but with clarity. In my desperate attempt to give Kevin everything, I'd taught him I deserved nothing. I opened my purse and removed the envelope containing the key, deed, and title, symbols of the surprise I'd planned for tonight. The 3-bedroom house in the upscale neighborhood Vanessa constantly talked about, the luxury SUV she'd pointed out in magazines, my entire settlement, transformed into their dream lifestyle. For a moment, I held the envelope, feeling its weight. Then I slipped it back into my purse and stood. "Leaving so soon?" Lily asked, surprised. "Yes, would you do me a favor? If anyone asks for me..." I paused, knowing nobody would. "Please tell them I wasn't feeling well." "I will, but are you sure you don't want to say goodbye to your son?" Through the glass doors, I could see Kevin raising a champagne flute, laughing at something Carlos Martinez said. He hadn't noticed my absence. "I'm sure." I pressed a $20 bill into her hand. "Thank you for your kindness, Lily." As I walked toward the exit, Vanessa emerged from the ladies' room, freezing when she saw me. "You're leaving?" Her tone suggested relief rather than concern. "Yes, congratulations again, Vanessa." I kept my voice steady, maintaining the dignity this woman had tried to strip from me. She glanced around nervously. "Is everything okay? You seem upset." The perfect opportunity to create a scene, to demand explanations, to embarrass her as she'd embarrassed me. Instead, I simply met her gaze. "Everything is perfectly clear now." Something in my tone made her shift uncomfortably. Kevin will be disappointed he missed saying goodbye. Will he? I smiled sadly. I doubt he's noticed I'm gone. Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked out into the warm evening air. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. As I walked, my pace quickened with each step, as though I were leaving behind more than just a wedding reception. On the bus ride home, I removed the envelope again, running my fingers over the papers inside. The house deed bearing Kevin and Vanessa's names. The car title ready for transfer. My retirement, my security, my future, all wrapped neatly in cream-colored paper. I'd planned to present it during the reception, imagining their surprise and joy. Now I imagined something different, their shock when they realized what they'd lost through their cruelty. But as my stop approached, a new thought emerged. Perhaps losing these gifts wasn't a punishment for them, but a salvation for me. For the first time in decades, I considered a radical idea. What if I used this money for myself? What would April Russo's life look like if she finally came first? As I stepped off the bus, I felt lighter than I had in years, despite the ache in my heart. Tomorrow would bring hard decisions. Tonight, I had already made the first one. I would never sit beside anyone's garbage again. 3 sharp knocks jolted me awake. Morning sunlight filtered through my thin curtains as the pounding continued, accompanied by my son's voice. "Mom? Are you in there? Mom?" I glanced at the clock. 7:38 a.m. I'd fallen asleep, still wearing my navy dress, the envelope with the house deed on my nightstand. The wedding had ended less than 12 hours ago. Smoothing my hair, I opened the door to find Kevin disheveled in yesterday's dress shirt and slacks. Behind him stood Vanessa, still in her wedding dress, mascara streaked down her face. "Jesus, Mom, we've been calling all night." Kevin pushed past me into my small apartment. "Why did you leave? Why aren't you answering your phone?" I closed the door quietly. "My phone's battery died. I'm sorry you were worried." Vanessa remained near the door, eyes darting around my modest living room with its second-hand furniture and water stains on the ceiling, a stark contrast to her parents' comfortable home. "The waitress said you weren't feeling well," Kevin continued. "Are you sick? Should we take you to the hospital?" "I'm not sick, Kevin." I moved to the kitchenette. "Would either of you like coffee?" "Coffee? Mom, we just spent our wedding night driving around looking for you. You disappeared without saying goodbye, without answering calls." "I was seated by the dumpsters," I interrupted, my voice calm as I measured coffee grounds. Outside, away from everyone. The silence that followed was deafening. Kevin's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "What are you talking about? You were supposed to be at table 7 with my friends from college." "Well, I wasn't." I turned on the coffee maker. "I was at a card table by the service entrance, between 2 garbage bins." Kevin turned to Vanessa, whose face had gone pale. "There was a mix-up with the seating," she offered weakly. "We had last-minute RSVPs and please don't lie to my face in my own home." I surprised myself with my firmness. "Not after what happened." Kevin looked between us, realization dawning. "Vanessa, did you put my mother at a table outside by the garbage?" Her silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ. He ran his hands through his hair. "Why would you do that?" Tears sprang to Vanessa's eyes. "It wasn't like that. We needed space for my dad's business partners. They're important for our future. I just thought that I wouldn't mind." I finished for her. "That I'm used to being treated like something disposable?" "No, you just decided I didn't count," I said, using her exact words from the reception. Kevin looked stricken. "She actually said that to you?" I nodded, pouring coffee into mugs, despite knowing no one would drink it. The familiar action gave me something to do with my hands. "Mom, I had no idea. I swear I thought you were inside with everyone else. I believe you." And I did. Kevin wasn't cruel, just oblivious and conflict avoidant. "But you didn't look for me until it was time to leave, did you?" His silence confirmed my suspicion. "Why didn't you make a scene?" Vanessa asked suddenly. "Why just leave?" I studied her tear-stained face, beautiful even in distress. "Would you have preferred that? A showdown by the dumpsters?" "Of course not, but I chose to leave with my dignity intact, something you didn't think I deserved in the first place." I took a deep breath, which brings me to this. I retrieved the envelope from my bedroom and placed it on the coffee table. "What's that?" Kevin asked. "Open it." With hesitant fingers, he removed the contents. The deed to the house in Oak Ridge Gardens, the title to the BMW X5, photos of both, and a card I'd written expressing my love and pride. Understanding dawned on his face. "Mom?" Vanessa snatched the papers, her eyes widening as she scanned the address. This is in Oak Ridge, the new development with the walking trails and community pool?" "Yes, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, granite countertops, hardwood floors, everything you've been talking about for the past year. And this car?" Her voice caught as she stared at the photo of the white SUV parked in the house's driveway. "This is exactly what I wanted. I know. I listen when you talk." Kevin looked up, his face pale. "This must have cost your entire settlement." "Most of it," I confirmed. "I was going to surprise you both last night at the reception." The silence that followed was thick with understanding. These weren't just papers. They were keys to the life Vanessa had been desperately chasing, the life she'd deemed me too embarrassing to be part of. "We can still make this work," Vanessa said finally, clutching the papers. "It was a misunderstanding. We're family." "No." I kept my voice gentle but firm. "These papers are still in my name. Nothing has been transferred yet." "What are you saying?" Kevin asked, though his expression told me he already knew. "I'm saying I won't be giving you this house or this car." Vanessa's face crumpled. "Because of one mistake? One stupid seating chart?" "It wasn't the seating chart, Vanessa. It was the intent behind it. And it wasn't one mistake. It was months of small cruelties building to that moment." I turned to my son. "Kevin, when was the last time you stood up for me when Vanessa made a dismissive comment? When she changed plans to exclude me? When she suggested I not mention my factory days to her friends?" He had no answer. "I worked 35 years at Bellamy's. I stood 10 hours a day at that sewing machine so you could go to college, so you wouldn't have to struggle like I did. I endured a lawsuit that dragged on for years after they fired me for reporting safety violations. And when I finally won, my first thought wasn't a vacation or secure retirement. It was giving you two a dream home." I reclaimed the papers gently but firmly from Vanessa's hands. "But I realize now that would be a mistake. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. You need to build your own life together, on your own terms, and I need to finally live mine." "So that's it?" Tears streamed down Vanessa's face, but they seemed more for the lost house than our relationship. "You're punishing us forever?" "This isn't punishment. It's a boundary, and possibly the healthiest thing I've done in decades." Kevin stood, shoulders slumped. "We should go. Come on, Vanessa." At the door, he turned back. "I'm sorry, Mom. I really am." "I know, sweetheart. Despite everything, I meant it. I still love you. That hasn't changed." After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment, clutching the envelope of possibilities. For the first time in my adult life, I asked myself a revolutionary question. What does April want? The days after the wedding blurred together in a parade of phone calls, unexpected visits, and increasingly desperate attempts to change my mind. Kevin came alone first, bringing my favorite lemon tarts and wearing the earnest expression that had gotten him out of trouble since childhood. "I've talked to Vanessa," he said, sitting awkwardly on my worn sofa. "She's truly sorry, Mom. She was stressed about the wedding, trying to impress her parents' friends. And that justified putting me by the garbage?" I set his untouched coffee on the side table. He winced. "Of course not. It was horrible, unforgivable. Yet here you are, asking me to forgive it. Not just forgive, understand." He leaned forward. "We've put down a deposit on an apartment, but it's tiny and in a bad neighborhood, with both our student loans. So this is about the house, not reconciliation." His silence told me everything. 2 days later, Vanessa arrived with her mother, Teresa Martinez. They brought an orchid in a ceramic pot and practiced apologies. "April, we're truly mortified by this misunderstanding," Teresa said, perched on my sofa like she feared catching something. "Vanessa has always been high-strung during stressful situations. The wedding was overwhelming for everyone." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I corrected gently. "Vanessa made a deliberate choice." Vanessa dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. "I've apologized, April. I don't know what more you want from me. What I wanted was sincerity, but I didn't say that." "The kids are just starting out," Teresa continued. "This house would give them such a foundation. In time, I'm sure any hurt feelings—" "This isn't about hurt feelings," I interrupted. "It's about respect." "Of course we respect you," Vanessa insisted, but her eyes kept drifting to the envelope visible on my bookshelf. After they left, I opened my laptop and searched cruise vacations for solo travelers, something I'd never dared to do before. The most creative attempt came a week later when Carlos Martinez arrived with his pastor in tow. They spoke of Christian forgiveness, family unity, and the biblical mandate to honor marriage. The irony of lecturing me on family values while defending my exclusion wasn't lost on me. The young couple needs support in their early years, Pastor Reynolds explained kindly. Your gift could be the foundation of a multi-generational blessing. I'll still help Kevin when he truly needs it, I assured them. But a luxury house in Oak Ridge Gardens isn't a need. Carlos leaned forward, businessman to the core. Perhaps a compromise? The house but not the car? Or vice versa? I simply shook my head. That evening, as I removed my mother's pearls from their worn velvet box, the phone rang. It was Gloria, my closest friend from Bellamy's, and the only person who'd stood by me throughout the grueling lawsuit. How are you holding up? Her voice was warm, familiar. We'd spent thousands of hours side by side at our machines, whispering conversations beneath the factory noise. I'm wavering, I admitted. Kevin called again today. He sounded so defeated. And Vanessa? She sent flowers with a card calling me the mother she never had. Her actual mother is very much alive and visited me 2 days ago. Gloria's laugh was rich and knowing. Classic manipulation. Remember how Supervisor Morris would compliment your speed right before cutting your piece rate? I smiled at the memory. We'd seen through such tactics even then. April, I need to ask you something, Gloria continued, serious now. What were you planning to live on after giving them the house and car? I have a small pension, Social Security when I turned 62. I would have managed. In that apartment? With the mold and the gunshots at night? I had no answer. The truth was, I hadn't thought about it. Decades of putting Kevin first had become so automatic that my own needs barely registered. You know what I did with my settlement? Gloria asked. I bought myself that little house near my daughter. Not for her, for me. I got the knee replacements I've needed for 10 years. And next month, I'm taking my grandkids to Disney World. That sounds wonderful. It is. And you know what else? My daughter respects me more now that I'm not constantly sacrificing everything. The grandkids see a grandmother who values herself. It's healthier for everyone. After we hung up, I sat at my small kitchen table and spread out the house photos, car brochure, and a notepad. On a whim, I began listing all the things I'd ever wanted to do, but never had. See the ocean from a cruise ship, visit the Grand Canyon, learn to swim properly, take a photography class, own a reliable car, live somewhere without bars on the windows. Simple dreams, modest compared to a house in Oak Ridge Gardens. Yet they seemed impossibly indulgent for a woman who'd bought her clothes at thrift stores so her son could have new ones. The next morning, I called a real estate agent. I'd like to sell a property, I told the surprised woman when she learned I hadn't yet taken possession. And I'm also looking to buy something for myself. 2 days later, Lisa Yang showed me a small, 2-bedroom condo in Riverside Park, a safe, pleasant neighborhood with tree-lined streets and a community garden. It's within your budget, with enough left over for investments and that cruise you mentioned, she explained, opening curtains to reveal a small balcony. The association fees include all exterior maintenance, and there's a security system. I walked through the sunny rooms, trying to imagine myself living there. No water stains, no sounds of arguments through paper-thin walls, no need to avoid certain streets after dark. What do you think? Lisa asked. It's lovely, but... I hesitated. But what? It feels selfish. My son and his wife are living in a cramped apartment, while I'd have a guest bedroom and balcony. Lisa gave me a measured look. May I speak frankly, Ms. Russo? I nodded. You worked 35 years in difficult conditions. You raised a son alone. You fought a corporate giant and won. When exactly do you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor? Her question hung in the air as I ran my fingers over the smooth countertop, admiring the way sunlight played across the hardwood floors. I'll take it, I said finally, a strange lightness spreading through my chest. I'll take it for me. That evening, Kevin called again. Before he could launch into his latest appeal, I shared my news. I've bought a condo, Kevin, and I'm taking a cruise in September. The silence that followed spoke volumes. So it's really final, he said eventually. You're actually selling the Oak Ridge house. I'm selling a house I never moved into. There's a difference. After we hung up, I looked around my shabby apartment. at the water-stained ceiling, the second-hand furniture, the barred windows, and felt something unexpected: anticipation. In 2 weeks, this would no longer be my home. For the first time in decades, I was moving forward, not just surviving. My new condo keys felt foreign in my hand, heavier than my old apartment keys, with unfamiliar ridges against my fingers. I stood in the empty living room, surrounded by boxes and the few pieces of furniture I'd kept. Sunlight streamed through uncovered windows, casting long rectangles across the hardwood floors. "Where do you want the dining table, Ms. Russo?" The mover waited patiently, holding one end of my small oak table, the only quality piece I'd owned before the settlement, purchased at a garage sale when Kevin started high school. "By the window, please." I gestured to the space overlooking the community garden. As the movers worked, I wandered through my new home, still disbelieving. The kitchen with its modest but new appliances, the bathroom with a tub I could actually soak in, the master bedroom with a ceiling fan gently circulating the spring air. No water stains, no cracked plaster, no sounds of arguments or music thumping through thin walls. My phone buzzed. Gloria was FaceTiming me. "Let me see it," she demanded, her face filling the screen. "Give me the tour." I flipped the camera and walked her through each room, her excited commentary making me see the space through new eyes. "That kitchen, those counters, and look at all that closet space. It's not exactly a mansion," I laughed. "It's perfect. It's yours. That's what matters." Her voice softened. "I'm so proud of you, April." After the movers left, I sat on my new sofa, also new, my first brand new furniture purchase ever, and opened my laptop. The cruise was booked for September, but that was still months away. I scrolled through a community college website, lingering on their continuing education courses. "Digital photography for beginners," I read aloud. The class met twice weekly in the evenings. On impulse, I registered and paid the $120 fee without a second thought. Another small act of revolution. The doorbell interrupted my browsing. Through the peephole, another novelty, security I'd never had, I saw Vanessa standing alone, looking uncharacteristically subdued in jeans and a simple blouse. I hesitated before opening the door. "Hi, April." Her eyes widened slightly as she took in the condo. "Your new place looks nice." "Thank you. How did you find me?" "Kevin got the address from the real estate agent." She shifted uncomfortably. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, watching as she surveyed my new home. Her expression was difficult to read, something between surprise and disappointment. "So this is where you're living now?" She walked to the window overlooking the garden. "It's cozy. It suits me." I remained standing, making no offer of refreshments. "What brings you here, Vanessa?" She turned, clutching her purse strap. "I wanted to see you, to clear the air." "I see. The Oak Ridge house sold already," she said abruptly. "The agent told Kevin yesterday." "Yes, the market is strong right now. We drove by it last night." Her voice caught slightly. "The master bathroom has a jacuzzi tub. And that kitchen island," she shook her head. "It was everything I wanted." I waited, sensing there was more. "I keep thinking about that day," she continued. "If I hadn't put you at that table, if I'd just..." She stopped, seeming to gather herself. "I've never made a mistake that cost me so much." There it was, the heart of her visit. Not reconciliation, but regret over the material loss. "Is that why you're here? Because of what you lost?" Her eyes snapped to mine, a flash of the real Vanessa visible before her practiced smile returned. "I'm here because you're family, because Kevin misses you. And yes, I regret what happened, but not just because of the house." "Then why?" She hesitated, seeming to weigh her words. "Because I misjudged you. I thought you were simple, just an old factory worker who wouldn't notice or care where she sat." Her cheeks flushed. I was wrong. Her honesty, however unflattering, surprised me. "Yes, you were. My parents never had much," she continued. "Dad's store barely stayed afloat some years. I promised myself I'd have more. The right house, the right car, the right life. When I met Kevin, I thought we wanted the same things. And now? Now we're in a one-bedroom apartment with noisy neighbors and cockroaches." She gave a hollow laugh. "Karma, I guess." Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. I'd lived most of my life in places like she described. Marriage isn't about where you live, Vanessa. It's about how you treat each other. "Is that why you never remarried after Kevin's father died?" The question caught me off guard. "Partly. I also had a son to raise alone and a demanding job. There wasn't much time for dating. She nodded, glancing around the condo again. This really is nice, April. You deserve it. For the first time, her words seemed genuine. Thank you. After an awkward silence, she moved toward the door. Well, I should go. Kevin doesn't know I came. He'd probably be mad. Are things difficult between you two? She paused, hand on the doorknob. He looks at me differently now, like he's seeing something he doesn't like. I had no comfort to offer, that wouldn't be a lie. Marriage takes work, I said finally, and honesty. After she left, I returned to my laptop, slightly shaken by the visit. Had it been a genuine attempt at reconciliation, or just another strategy to access the money? Perhaps a bit of both. Later that evening, as I unpacked kitchen boxes, my phone rang. It was Kevin. Hi, Mom. How's the new place? It's wonderful. I'm just getting settled. That's good. He paused. Vanessa told me she visited you today. Yes, she did. That was her idea, not mine. His tone was defensive. I told her to give you space. It's all right. It was an interesting conversation. What did she want? His suspicion spoke volumes about their current relationship. To see the condo, to talk. He sighed heavily. We've been fighting a lot. About money, about the wedding, about everything. I set down the mug I was unwrapping. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, another pause. I've been thinking about what you said, about building our own life. You're right. I've always taken the easy path, letting you sacrifice for me, then letting Vanessa make decisions I should have questioned. His self-awareness surprised me. That's very insightful, Kevin. I'm trying to be better, more honest with myself. His voice softened. I miss you, Mom. I miss you too. Could I come see your new place sometime? Just me? Of course. How about dinner this Sunday? After we hung up, I continued unpacking, each item finding its place in my new home. The factory settlement check had changed everything, not just materially, but in how I viewed myself and my relationships. As night fell, I sat on my small balcony, listening to the gentle sounds of my new neighborhood. No sirens, no shouting, just the rustle of leaves and distant conversation. To new beginnings, I whispered, raising my teacup to the stars. For the first time in decades, I was truly excited about tomorrow. Aperture controls how much light enters the camera, explained Professor Ramirez, adjusting the settings on the demonstration model. Think of it like your pupils. In dim light, they dilate. A wider aperture. In bright light, they contract. A smaller aperture. I adjusted the dial on my new camera. Not expensive, but far from the disposable ones I'd used for Kevin's childhood photos. Around me, 12 other students peered at their own cameras with various expressions of concentration and confusion. 6 weeks had passed since I moved into my condo, and 3 since I'd started this photography course. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, I drove my newly purchased used Camry, practical, reliable, and mine, to the community college campus. Now, aperture also affects your depth of field, the professor continued. A wide aperture gives you that beautiful blurred background professional photos have. A narrow aperture keeps more in focus. I dutifully took notes, determined to understand. Learning something new at 61 was both exhilarating and humbling. My fingers, nimble from decades of sewing, sometimes fumbled with the small camera buttons. My mind, sharp with life experience, occasionally struggled with new terminology. But I persisted. This wasn't for Kevin, or a job, or anyone else. This was for me. After class, I lingered in the parking lot, practicing with my camera in the golden evening light. A row of flowering cherry trees caught my attention, their pink blossoms luminous against the darkening sky. I adjusted the aperture as we'd learned, carefully framing the nearest tree with a distant office building blurred behind it. The result on my screen delighted me. My first truly intentional photograph. That's really good, said a voice behind me. I turned to find Gloria, smiling broadly. She'd driven across town to surprise me after class. What do you think? I showed her my camera screen. I think you found your next career, she laughed, linking her arm through mine. Come on, I'm taking you to dinner to celebrate your new artistic life. Over Thai food at a nearby restaurant. Another first. I'd never had Thai before. Gloria updated me on her Disney World plans. The grandkids are beside themselves, she said, showing me photos of custom t-shirts she'd ordered for the trip. My daughter keeps saying I'm spoiling them, but that's what grandmothers are supposed to do, right? Absolutely. I smiled, thinking of how different our retirements looked from what we'd imagined during those grueling factory days. "Have you heard from Kevin lately?" she asked, expertly wielding chopsticks while I still struggled with mine. "He came for dinner last Sunday. It was nice. Just the two of us, like old times. And the princess?" I gave her a reproachful look. "Vanessa is trying, I think, in her way." Gloria's skepticism was clear. "And have they asked for money yet?" "Not directly." I set down my fork. "Kevin mentioned they're struggling with the rent and asked if I had any budgeting tips. I think it was his way of feeling out the situation." "And what did you say?" "I suggested he look for better paying teaching positions and offered to help with his resume." I smiled slightly. Not what he was hoping for, but what he actually needed. Gloria nodded approvingly. "You're learning." On my drive home, Gloria's words echoed in my mind. I was learning, not just photography, but how to center myself in my own life. The shift was subtle, but profound. My phone chimed as I walked into my condo. A text from Kevin. "Got called for an interview at Westlake Academy. Thanks for helping with my resume. Could lead to a big salary increase." I smiled, typing back, "That's wonderful. When's the interview?" His response came quickly. "Next Tuesday at 2. Nervous but excited. I sent an encouraging reply, then set my phone down and unpacked my camera. As I reviewed the evening's photos, I felt a quiet pride. They weren't perfect, but they were mine. Images I'd created through my own vision and growing skill. The next morning, I woke early and drove to Riverside Park with my camera. The morning light transformed the familiar landscape, revealing details I'd never noticed before. An elderly couple walking hand in hand. A heron standing motionless in the shallows, dew glistening on spider webs. I lost myself in the viewfinder, adjusting settings, experimenting with angles. 3 hours passed before I realized how hungry and tired I'd become. As I packed up my equipment, my phone rang. "Mom?" Kevin sounded agitated. "I need a favor." My old self would have immediately said yes, regardless of what followed. Instead, I asked, "What kind of favor?" "My car broke down. Timing belt snapped. The mechanic says it'll cost $100 to fix, which we don't have. I know things have been complicated, but I need to get to this interview." I considered my response carefully. "When do you need the car back?" "That's the thing. They said it would take a week to get the parts. The interview is Tuesday." "I can drive you to the interview," I offered, "and help with a portion of the repair costs if you can cover the rest." The silence that followed told me this wasn't the response he'd expected. "Thanks," he said finally. "That would help, but we're pretty maxed out right now. Vanessa's car needs work too, and the rent just increased." The old familiar guilt stirred. "Kevin, I know. We need to stand on our own. But Mom, we're drowning here. Just a small loan until I get this new job? I promise we'll pay you back." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of decades of saying yes pressing against my new resolve. "Let me think about it, okay? In the meantime, I'll definitely drive you to the interview." After we hung up, I sat on a park bench, watching children play on a nearby playground. Their mothers chatted nearby, young women with their lives ahead of them, making their own choices and mistakes. Had I robbed Kevin of important lessons by always making things too easy? Had my constant sacrifices taught him to expect rescue rather than develop resilience? That evening, I spread my finances on the kitchen table. The condo had cost less than the Oak Ridge house, leaving me with a comfortable cushion after the cruise and car purchase. I could afford to help Kevin. The question was whether I should. I picked up a framed photo from my end table. Kevin at his college graduation, beaming with the confidence of youth. I'd worked double shifts for years to make that moment possible. "What's the right answer?" I asked the empty room. The next day I called my bank and arranged a transfer to Kevin's account, enough to cover half the car repair, but not the full amount. Then I texted him, "Check your account. This is a one-time help. I know you'll handle the rest." His grateful response came immediately, followed by another text. "Vanessa and I have been talking. We're making changes, cutting expenses. Thank you for believing in me. Whether those changes would last remained to be seen. But for now, I'd found a middle path, helping without sacrificing myself completely." That night, I registered for an intermediate photography course starting after my cruise. The future stretched before me, suddenly full of possibilities that had nothing to do with factory work or financial struggle. For the first time in my life, I was focused on my own image, developing it carefully, one frame at a time. "And you're sure you have everything?" Gloria stood in my living room, hands on hips, surveying the suitcase open on my sofa. "Passport? Medication? Seasickness pills?" "Yes, to all three," I laughed, folding my new sundress, purchased specifically for formal night on the ship. "You're worse than I was when Kevin left for college. Someone has to fuss over you for a change." She picked up my camera. "Taking this beauty along?" Of course, Professor Ramirez gave me a special assignment, documenting the journey from a beginner's perspective. 2 months had passed since my conversation with Kevin about his car. The promised changes had materialized in small but meaningful ways. He'd secured the teaching position at Westlake Academy with a substantial salary increase. Vanessa had taken on additional clients at her real estate agency. They'd moved to a slightly better apartment, still modest, but without the cockroach problem. Our relationship remained cautiously cordial. Sunday dinners had become a semi-regular occurrence, sometimes with Vanessa, sometimes just Kevin. The subject of money arose less frequently, though I occasionally caught Vanessa eyeing my condo with that calculating look I'd come to recognize. "You've gone quiet," Gloria observed, breaking into my thoughts. "Worried about the trip?" "Not worried, just reflecting." I zipped the suitcase. 6 months ago, I was planning to give everything away. Now I'm packing for a Caribbean cruise. "Life is strange. Life is what you make it," she corrected, helping me carry the luggage to the door. "And you're finally making it yours." The next morning dawned bright and clear. Perfect travel weather. I took one last look around my condo, double-checking windows and appliances. On the refrigerator, I'd posted a printout of my itinerary. 7 days in the Caribbean, visiting Jamaica, Grand Cayman, and Cozumel. My taxi arrived precisely on time. The driver, a cheerful young man named Marcus, loaded my luggage while chatting about cruise ships. "First time sailing?" he asked, pulling into traffic. "First time doing anything like this," I admitted. "I've never even seen the ocean." His eyes widened in the rearview mirror. "Never? Oh, you're in for something special." During the hour-long drive to the port, I gazed out the window, watching the landscape change from city to suburbs to coastal highway. When we finally crested a hill and the vast expanse of water appeared, I gasped involuntarily. "There it is," Marcus said, smiling at my reaction. "Pretty amazing, right?" Words failed me. The vastness, the endless blue meeting the horizon. Pictures hadn't prepared me for this. At the port, I joined the boarding queue, surrounded by excited travelers. Some were clearly experienced cruisers, navigating the process with practiced ease. Others, like me, clutched their documents with nervous anticipation. "First cruise?" asked an elderly woman behind me, noting my wide-eyed expression. "Is it that obvious?" She laughed warmly. "We all had a first time. I'm Margaret, by the way. This is my 12th cruise, but I still get butterflies." "April," I replied, grateful for the friendly face. "Any advice for a complete novice?" "Explore every inch of the ship, try something new every day, and pack motion sickness medication just in case." As the line inched forward, Margaret shared stories of previous voyages. By the time we reached the check-in counter, I felt considerably calmer. The boarding process passed in a blur of security checks and welcome speeches. When I finally stepped into my stateroom, a modest interior cabin I'd chosen to save money, I set down my bags and perched on the edge of the bed, momentarily overwhelmed. I was really doing this, alone, at 61. My phone chimed with a text from Kevin. "Bon voyage, Mom. Take lots of pictures." I smiled, typing back, "Will do. Love you." After unpacking, I ventured out to explore the ship. The scale was dizzying. Multiple restaurants, pools, theaters, and lounges spread across 14 decks. Everywhere, people laughed and chatted, drinks in hand despite the early hour. I found myself on the top deck as the ship's horn sounded our departure. Clutching the railing, I watched the shoreline slowly recede, a mixture of excitement and trepidation fluttering in my chest. First solo cruise? A voice beside me interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find a tall, silver-haired man in his 60s, his weathered face creased in a friendly smile. "First cruise ever, actually," I replied. "Is it that obvious? You have that look of wonder." He extended his hand. "Robert Collins, retired high school principal from Michigan. April Russo, retired factory worker from Ohio." We shook hands, his grip firm and warm. "Factory worker, huh? What kind of factory?" "Textiles. I was a seamstress at Bellamy's for 35 years. His eyebrows rose. Bellamy's. Weren't they in the news a few years back? Big lawsuit over working conditions? Yes, I said, surprised he remembered. I was part of that lawsuit, actually. Good for you. His approval seemed genuine. Standing up to corporate giants takes courage. As the coastline disappeared into the distance, Robert and I fell into easy conversation. He was a widower of 5 years, traveling regularly since retirement. I shared edited highlights of my own story, the factory years, raising Kevin alone, my recent life changes. So this cruise is a first step in your new life, he summarized. A symbolic journey. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yes, I suppose it is. The ship's movement beneath us changed as we entered open water, a gentle rolling that took some adjustment. Care to join me for dinner? Robert asked as the announcement for first seating chimed over the speakers. They'll put us at a table with other solo travelers, but it's nice to know at least one friendly face. I hesitated briefly. This wasn't part of my careful planning. I'd expected to dine alone with a book for company. But something about Robert's straightforward manner put me at ease. I'd like that, I decided. Thank you. Dinner exceeded every expectation. Our table included Margaret from the boarding line, a retired nurse named Daniel, and sisters Judith and Eleanor celebrating their 70th birthdays. The conversation flowed as easily as the wine, covering travel stories, grandchildren, and retirement adventures. When I mentioned my photography class, Robert's interest piqued. I'm something of an amateur photographer myself. Perhaps we could explore some of the ports together. I know the best spots for photos in Grand Cayman. The offer hung in the air, weighted with possibility. This wasn't just about photography, and we both knew it. I'd like that, I said finally. Later, standing on my stateroom balcony, Margaret had insisted on upgrading me. You can't see the ocean from an interior cabin. I watched moonlight ripple across endless waves. My phone had no signal this far from shore, a strange but liberating disconnection. For the first time in decades, no one could reach me with their needs or emergencies. I was truly, completely on my own, surrounded by nothing but possibilities. The realization wasn't frightening as I'd expected. Instead, it felt like drawing a deep breath after years of shallow ones. I took out my camera, attempting to capture the moonlight on water. The image on the screen couldn't convey the vastness, the feeling of standing at the edge of something infinite. But that was okay. Some experiences weren't meant to be captured, only lived. Hold still, Robert instructed, adjusting my stance slightly. Now frame the ruins against the sky, just like that. I squinted through my viewfinder at the ancient Mayan structure rising from the Cozumel landscape. The Caribbean sun beat down mercilessly, but I barely noticed, absorbed in capturing the perfect shot. How's this? I showed him the image on my camera screen. Beautiful composition. He nodded approvingly. You've got a natural eye, April. 4 days into the cruise, Robert and I had fallen into an easy companionship. In Jamaica, he'd guided me to a secluded waterfall away from the tourist crowds. In Grand Cayman, we'd snorkeled in crystal waters, another first for me, accomplished with much nervous laughter. Now in Cozumel, we explored Mayan ruins together, our cameras documenting every discovery. Hard to believe this is our last port, I said, wiping perspiration from my forehead. Tomorrow we're at sea, then back to reality. Reality. Robert tested the word like an unfamiliar flavor. You know, I spent 40 years in education, believing retirement would be the epilogue of my life. Turns out, it's more like a whole new book. I nodded, understanding completely. I'm still figuring out what my new chapters look like. Well, your photography could certainly be one of them. He gestured toward my camera. You've captured things I've walked past a dozen times without noticing. His compliment warmed me more than the Mexican sun. Throughout my life, I'd been valued primarily for what I could do for others. Sew garments, raise my son, provide financial support. Being appreciated simply for how I saw the world felt revolutionary. Let's get out of this heat, Robert suggested. There's a little cafe near the port with the best horchata you've ever tasted. In the cafe's blessed air conditioning, we reviewed our photos while sipping sweet, cinnamony drinks. Robert's were technically superior, his years of experience evident in every perfectly exposed image. But mine had something different, an untrained freshness that captured feeling over technical perfection. You should consider showing these somewhere, he said, scrolling through my Jamaica waterfall series. A local gallery or cafe exhibition. I laughed. Aren't you getting ahead of yourself? I've taken exactly one photography class. Art isn't about credentials, April. It's about seeing and sharing. These photographs tell stories. His seriousness gave me pause. Throughout the cruise, Robert had been generous with photography tips, patient with my novice questions. But this was different. He was treating my work with genuine respect. Maybe when I finish the intermediate class, I conceded. If Professor Ramirez thinks they're good enough. Robert checked his watch. We should head back if we want to make the all-aboard time. On the shuttle to the ship, a comfortable silence fell between us. I watched the colorful buildings of San Miguel pass by, mentally composing photographs I no longer had time to take. I've been thinking, Robert said suddenly. I'm driving down to Florida next month. The Everglades are spectacular for wildlife photography. You might consider joining me. The invitation hung in the air, weighted with unspoken possibilities. This wasn't just about photography. That's a generous offer, I said carefully. Just something to consider. His tone was deliberately casual. No pressure. Back on board, we parted to prepare for the captain's farewell dinner. In my stateroom, I studied my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me had changed subtly but significantly over the week. Her skin sun-kissed, her eyes brighter, her smile coming more readily. I put on the navy dress I'd worn to Kevin's wedding, now paired with a colorful scarf purchased in Jamaica. The combination transformed both the dress and how I felt wearing it. At dinner, our table companions had become something like friends. Margaret regaled us with plans for her next cruise. Daniel shared photos of his grandchildren back home. The birthday sisters debated their next adventure. Alaska, declared Judith firmly. I want to see the northern lights before I die. Too cold, countered Eleanor. I vote for Greece. Why not both? I suggested, surprising myself with my boldness. Robert smiled at me across the table, a private acknowledgement of how far I'd come from the hesitant woman who'd boarded the ship a week ago. After dinner, we strolled the promenade deck, watching stars emerge above the dark water. The ship's movements had become familiar, almost comforting. Will you miss this? Robert asked. Everything, I admitted. The freedom, the discovery, even the tiny shower in my stateroom. He laughed. The cruising bug bites hard. Fair warning. One trip is never enough. We reached a quiet section of the deck, pausing at the railing. Below us, the ship's wake created luminous patterns in the dark water. April, Robert began, his tone more serious. I've enjoyed our time together immensely. So have I. I don't want to presume, but he hesitated, suddenly less assured than the confident guide who'd shepherded me through 3 countries. I'd like to stay in touch after tomorrow. The request was modest, carefully phrased to give me every opportunity to decline gracefully. I'd like that too, I said simply. Relief softened his features. Good. That's good. The ship's horn sounded, marking the hour. Around us, other passengers began drifting toward the theater for the final show. We should probably join them, I suggested, though part of me preferred to remain in this moment. Probably, he agreed, making no move to leave. Instead, with a gentleness that nearly undid me, he took my hand. His palm was warm against mine, slightly calloused from camera equipment and years of living. When I didn't pull away, he interlaced our fingers, the gesture both innocent and profoundly intimate. We stood that way for several minutes, watching the ocean slide past, connected by this simple touch that somehow contained worlds of possibility. The disembarkation process the next morning was chaotic and bittersweet. Robert helped me navigate the customs lines, carrying my heavier bag despite my protests. My mother raised me better than to let a lady struggle with luggage, he insisted with mock solemnity. This lady managed factory equipment for decades, I countered. I'm stronger than I look. Of that, April Russo, I have absolutely no doubt. In the terminal, surrounded by passengers searching for transportation, we faced the awkward moment of parting. So, he began. So, I echoed. I'll call you when I get home? Maybe we can talk more about that Everglades trip? I'd like that. He hesitated, then leaned forward to kiss my cheek, a gesture both old-fashioned and deeply touching. Safe travels, April. You too, Robert. As my taxi pulled away, I watched his figure grow smaller in the rear window. Something expanded in my chest, not the pain of separation, but a curious lightness. Whatever happened next between us was unwritten, full of possibility rather than obligation. My phone buzzed as it reconnected to cellular service. Texts from Kevin, Gloria, even Vanessa filled the screen. Questions about the trip, updates on their lives, reminders of the world waiting for me. But for the first time, that world felt less like a wait and more like a choice, a place I was returning to on my own terms, carrying new perspectives and possibilities with me. The ocean had changed me, just as Margaret had predicted that first day. I was still April Russo, still a mother, still an ex-factory worker, but I was also becoming someone new, a photographer, a traveler, possibly even a woman who held hands with silver-haired former principals under starlit skies. My condo felt simultaneously familiar and strange after a week at sea, like a beloved sweater that no longer quite fits. I wandered from room to room, reacquainting myself with the space I'd been so proud to purchase. The silence felt oppressive after days of constant ocean sounds and shipboard activity. The blinking light on my answering machine showed 3 messages. I pressed play while unpacking. April, it's Gloria. Call me the minute you get back. I want every detail, especially about that photography buddy you mentioned in your texts. I smiled, sorting laundry into piles. The second message was from Kevin. Hey Mom, hope you had an amazing trip. Vanessa and I would love to take you to dinner this weekend to hear all about it. We have some news to share too. Call me when you can. The third made me freeze. Mrs. Russo, this is Patricia Winters from Bellamy Textiles Legal Department. We're reaching out to all settlement recipients regarding a follow-up matter. Please call our office at your earliest convenience. Bellamy's? After all this time? The lawsuit had been settled over 8 months ago, the company's appeals exhausted, the payments distributed. What possible follow-up could there be? I pushed the concern aside temporarily, focusing on unpacking and laundry. My phone chimed with a text from Robert. Made it home safely. Missing the ocean and my photography companion already. Call when you're settled? Warmth spread through my chest as I typed back, just unpacking. Will call tonight. I called Gloria first, enduring her good-natured interrogation about Robert with as much dignity as possible. So you spent 3 days exploring ports with him, had dinner together every night, and he kissed you goodbye? She summarized, barely containing her excitement. On the cheek, Gloria. It was hardly passionate. At our age, a kiss on the cheek is passionate, she laughed. Is he handsome? I considered the question. Robert wasn't conventionally handsome, his nose slightly too large, his hair thinning on top, but his eyes crinkled warmly when he smiled, and he carried himself with quiet confidence. He's distinguished, I settled on. Distinguished, Gloria repeated, clearly amused. And he's invited you to Florida? For photography, I emphasized. The Everglades have incredible wildlife. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's the only wildlife he's interested in. Gloria! I felt my cheeks warm despite being alone in my apartment. After promising to show her my cruise photos soon, I called Kevin. Mom, welcome back. His enthusiasm seemed genuine. How was it? Wonderful. Better than I imagined. I have so many stories and photographs to share. Great. Can we do dinner Saturday? Vanessa's parents are coming too. We have some big news. A flutter of anxiety disrupted my post-vacation calm. Big news? Nothing bad, he assured me quickly. Actually, it's really good, but we want to tell everyone together. I agreed to Saturday dinner, then hesitated before asking, Kevin, did Bellamy's contact you recently? No. Should they have? I'm not sure. I had a message from their legal department. Probably just paperwork, he suggested. But call them back, and let me know if there's any problem. After we hung up, I stared at the number from the Bellamy message. Taking a deep breath, I dialed. Bellamy Textiles Legal Department. This is April Russo, returning Patricia Winters' call. One moment, Mrs. Russo. After a brief hold, a crisp female voice came on the line. Mrs. Russo, thank you for returning my call. I'm reaching out regarding our recent review of settlement distributions. My stomach tightened. What about them? Our auditors have discovered a calculation error that affected several recipients, including yourself. She paused. In simple terms, you were underpaid. Underpaid? I repeated, confused. Yes. Based on your years of service and overtime records, you should have received an additional $42,500. I sat down abruptly. That can't be right. I assure you, we've triple-checked the figures. The company is preparing supplemental payments to affected workers. We'll need updated banking information to process your payment. Suspicion replaced shock. After years of Bellamy's fighting every aspect of the lawsuit, this sudden generosity seemed implausible. "I'd like to consult my attorney before proceeding," I said carefully. "Of course, please do so promptly. There's a deadline for processing these adjustments." After hanging up, I immediately called Martin Goldberg, the lawyer who'd represented us in the class action. "April, good to hear from you. How are things?" I explained the call, my skepticism evident. "You're right to be cautious," Martin said, his tone sharpening. "This is the first I'm hearing of any calculation errors. Let me make some calls and get back to you." He called back within the hour. "I've spoken with Bellamy's chief counsel. This is legitimate, April. Several workers' overtime records were incorrectly calculated in the final settlement. The error was discovered during a routine audit. So this is real? They actually owe me more money?" "Yes. I've reviewed the figures myself. The amount they quoted is correct." After providing my updated banking information through proper channels, I sat on my balcony, processing this unexpected development. Another $42,500, nearly half of what I'd already received. Money that would further secure my retirement, fund more travel, perhaps even allow for those photography exhibitions Robert had encouraged me to consider. The following day, I returned to my photography class, sharing carefully selected cruise photos with Professor Ramirez. "These show real growth, April," he said, studying my images of Jamaican waterfalls and Mayan ruins. "You've developed a distinctive style, very human, very immediate. Thank you. I had a good teacher during the trip. He raised an eyebrow, but didn't press for details. The intermediate class will build on these skills. Have you considered where you want to go with your photography?" The question caught me off guard. Go with it? Some students want to develop professional skills, others pursue artistic expression, some just want a fulfilling hobby. What's your goal? I'd never considered photography in terms of goals. It had simply been something new, something mine. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "I just know I want to keep learning, keep seeing the world this way." He nodded approvingly. "The best answer. Stay open to possibilities." Possibilities. The word followed me throughout the week as I readjusted to life on land. Robert called nightly, our conversations evolving from cruise memories to deeper exchanges about our lives, hopes, and experiences. The Everglades trip remained an open invitation, neither pressed nor withdrawn. Saturday arrived quickly. I met Kevin, Vanessa, and her parents at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind I'd never have entered before the settlement. "You look different, Mom," Kevin observed as I sat down. "More relaxed? Cruising agrees with me." I smiled. The ocean puts everything in perspective. Carlos Martinez studied me with new interest. "Vanessa mentioned you took a Caribbean cruise. Teresa and I did the same route last year." "April went alone," Vanessa added, a hint of her old condescension surfacing. "Very brave." "Not completely alone," I corrected mildly. "I made some wonderful friends on board." Kevin squeezed my hand. "I want to hear everything. But first, Vanessa and I have news." They exchanged glances, then Vanessa extended her left hand, revealing a new diamond band alongside her engagement ring. "We're pregnant," she announced. "Due in February." Teresa gasped with delight while Carlos beamed proudly. "A grandchild," I whispered, genuine joy welling up. "Oh, Kevin, we wanted you to be the first to know," my son said, his eyes shining. "Well, the first 4. As congratulations flowed around the table, I watched Vanessa's face, radiant with excitement, but also something new, vulnerability. Impending motherhood had already begun changing her, just as it had changed me decades ago. "This calls for a toast," Carlos declared, signaling for champagne. As glasses were raised, I realized with sudden clarity that life had shifted once again. I was about to become a grandmother, another identity, another relationship, another adventure. And for the first time, I felt genuinely ready for whatever came next. "What about this one?" I held up a mint green onesie with tiny embroidered sailboats. Kevin laughed. "Mom, they already have more clothes than they can possibly use." I can't help it. I added the onesie to my already overflowing shopping basket. It's a grandmother's prerogative. 3 months had passed since the pregnancy announcement. Vanessa was showing now, a small but distinct bump that she cradled protectively during our increasingly frequent family dinners. The additional settlement money had arrived as promised, further securing my future and allowing these small indulgences for my future grandchild. "Do you think they'll like the nursery furniture?" I asked as we walked through the baby boutique. I'd purchased a crib, changing table, and rocker for them last week. Quality pieces, but not extravagant. "Mom, they love it. You know they do." Kevin guided me toward the exit before I could find more to buy. "But you need to slow down. The baby won't arrive for another 4 months." Outside, the October sunshine created a perfect autumn day. We strolled toward the coffee shop where we'd agreed to meet Vanessa after her doctor's appointment. "I can't believe how much has changed in a year," Kevin mused. "Last October, you were still at that awful apartment. I was teaching at Ridgemont, and Vanessa and I were planning a wedding. And now here we are," I agreed. "You at Westlake Academy, me in my condo, and a baby on the way. Plus your cruise adventures, photography classes, and mysterious phone calls with a certain Robert." He gave me a teasing smile. "Mom, are you dating?" I felt my cheeks warm. "We're friends who share an interest in photography. Friends who talk every night and are planning a trip to Florida together." "How did you—" Gloria may have mentioned it when I ran into her at the grocery store. I made a mental note to have a word with my too informative friend. "Robert and I are taking things very slowly. At our age, there's no rush." "Well, I think it's great." Kevin's sincerity caught me off guard. "You deserve someone who appreciates you." We reached the coffee shop where Vanessa was already waiting, a folder of ultrasound images on the table before her. "It's a boy," she announced before we'd even sat down. "Look." She pushed the ultrasound images toward us. I examined them carefully, pretending I could make out more than vague shadows. "A grandson," I whispered, unexpected emotion tightening my throat. "We were thinking of naming him Thomas," Kevin said quietly. "After Dad." Tears sprang to my eyes. "Your father would have loved that." Vanessa reached across the table to take my hand, a gesture so unexpected I nearly pulled back in surprise. "We have something else to discuss," she said, exchanging glances with Kevin. "About living arrangements." I tensed automatically, expecting another financial appeal. "Our apartment lease is ending in December," Kevin explained. "With the baby coming, we've been looking at houses, but even with my salary increase—" "You need help with a down payment," I concluded, mentally calculating what I could reasonably offer. "Actually, no." Vanessa straightened. "We've been saving aggressively. The issue is location. We want to be closer to you, Mom," Kevin continued. "The houses in our price range are across town, at least 30 minutes away." "So we had another idea," Vanessa said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "The unit below yours, 2B, is coming available next month. We wondered if you'd be uncomfortable with us living in the same building?" I blinked, processing this unexpected request. "You want to live in my building?" "Only if you're completely comfortable with it," Kevin hurried to add. "We don't want to intrude on your independence." "But it would let you be close to your grandson," Vanessa said softly. "And frankly, we could use the help once he arrives." I studied Vanessa's face, searching for the calculating woman who'd seated me by the dumpsters. Instead, I found someone different, still proud, still ambitious, but somehow humbled by impending motherhood. "I think that would be wonderful," I said finally, "for all of us." The relief on their faces was palpable. "The condo isn't as spacious as the Oak Ridge house would have been," Vanessa acknowledged with surprising candor, "but it's well maintained, in a safe neighborhood, and—" she smiled slightly. "The neighbors are excellent." Later that evening, as I sorted through my latest batch of photographs, Robert called. "You sound happy," he observed after I recounted the day's events. "I am. It's strange. A year ago, I would have seen them wanting to move close by as another way to use me. Now it feels like reconnection." "People change," Robert said thoughtfully. "You most dramatically of all." "Me? How so?" "The woman I met on that cruise, hesitant, just beginning to claim her own life. She's evolved into someone who sets boundaries, pursues passions, and makes decisions based on her own needs, not just others." His perception startled me. I hadn't thought of it that way. "Speaking of pursuits," he continued, "I've finalized plans for the Everglades trip. 2 weeks in November, staying at a small lodge that caters to photographers. If you're still interested." My calendar already showed the dates blocked off, a leap of faith I'd made weeks ago. "I'm definitely still interested." "Excellent." His smile was audible through the phone. "And April? I've been meaning to ask. After Florida, would you consider meeting my daughter and her family? They live in Atlanta. We could stop there on our way back north." The question hung in the air, weighted with significance. Meeting family was a step beyond friendship, beyond photography companionship. I'd like that very much, I said softly. After we hung up, I returned to my photographs. The latest series captured autumn in Riverside Park, golden leaves, children playing, elderly couples on benches. I'd begun submitting select images to local exhibits, even selling a few prints at the community art fair. Professor Ramirez had encouraged me to develop a portfolio website, something I was exploring with both excitement and trepidation. Your perspective is unique, he'd insisted. You see beauty in ordinary moments others miss. My phone chimed with a text from Gloria. Dinner tomorrow? Need to hear about Everglades plans and grandbaby news. I smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. My once empty social calendar now required actual management, photography classes, exhibits, dinners with Gloria, Sunday family meals, volunteer shifts at the community garden, and soon a trip to Florida with Robert. The following morning, I woke early and drove to Riverside Park with my camera. The rising sun painted the autumn landscape in golden light, creating the perfect conditions for photography. As I adjusted my settings, capturing the interplay of light and shadow, a young woman approached, watching curiously. "Those are beautiful," she commented, gesturing toward my camera screen. "The way you caught the light? Thank you." I smiled, unexpectedly pleased by the compliment. "I've been wanting to try photography," she continued hesitantly, "but I wouldn't know where to begin." I remembered standing on the ship's deck that first day, overwhelmed by the vastness of the ocean, uncertain of my footing on the shifting deck. "Community college," I said decisively. "They have excellent beginner classes. That's where I started. Just last year." Her eyebrows rose. "Really? You seem so confident." "I'm still learning," I admitted. "But that's the joy of it. There's always something new to discover, no matter when you begin." She thanked me and continued her morning jog. I watched her go, struck by the symmetry of the moment, how quickly we move from student to guide, from seeker to sharer. Turning back to the landscape before me, I raised my camera once more, focusing not on what was lost or left behind, but on what waited to be discovered. Each photograph, each day, each choice was another step on this unexpected journey, one that had begun beside wedding reception dumpsters and now stretched toward horizons I was only beginning to imagine. "You're sure you packed enough insect repellent?" Kevin hovered near my suitcase, concern etching his features. "The Everglades are notorious for mosquitoes. I have 3 different kinds, plus long-sleeved shirts and pants." I folded the last of my photography gear into its padded case. "I'll be fine, Kevin. This isn't my first trip, remember?" I know. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father's it made my heart catch. "It's just 2 weeks is a long time." I paused my packing to look at him properly. At 31, my son still carried traces of the boy I'd raised alone. The serious eyes, the slightly lopsided smile. But responsibility had matured his features, and impending fatherhood had added a new gravity. "You'll be fine too," I assured him. "The condo downstairs will be ready when I get back. And I'm only a phone call away if you need anything." "It's not that." He sat on the edge of my bed. "It's just strange. You going on adventures while I'm settling down. Like we've switched roles." The observation startled me with its accuracy. For decades, I'd been the stable center of Kevin's universe while he explored and grew. Now he was establishing roots while I discovered wings. "Life has seasons," I said finally. "Mine was about stability and sacrifice for a very long time. Now it's about exploration. Yours will cycle through different phases too." He nodded thoughtfully. "Vanessa and I have been talking a lot about what kind of parents we want to be. About balance." "That's good." She admitted something yesterday. He hesitated. "She said she used to resent how close we were, you and me, that she felt like she was competing with you." I thought of the wedding, the table by the dumpsters, the calculated cruelty. That explains some things. "She was wrong in how she handled it," Kevin said quickly. "She knows that now. But I think I contributed to the problem by never establishing proper boundaries. I leaned on you too much, expected too much." His self-awareness moved me deeply. "We all did the best we could with what we knew at the time. The baby is making us rethink everything." He smiled slightly. "We want Thomas to have you in his life, fully, completely. But we also need to stand on our own feet as parents." That sounds healthy for everyone. I zipped my suitcase closed. "And that's exactly why this trip is good timing. You two need space to prepare for parenthood, and I need, well, something that's just mine. Kevin helped carry my luggage to the door, where a taxi waited to take me to the airport. Robert would meet me in Miami for the drive to our Everglades lodge. Have an amazing time, Mom. Kevin hugged me tightly. Take lots of pictures of those alligators from a safe distance. I will, and you take care of Vanessa and my grandson. Always. As the taxi pulled away, I watched Kevin standing in my doorway, waving. For a fleeting moment, I saw him at 5 years old, waving goodbye on his first day of kindergarten, trying so hard to be brave. Now we were both being brave in new ways. The flight to Miami passed quickly, my mind occupied with anticipation rather than anxiety. When I spotted Robert waiting at the arrival gate, his familiar figure brought an unexpected flutter of happiness. April. He enfolded me in a warm embrace. You look wonderful. So do you. And he did. Tanned and relaxed in casual clothes, his silver hair catching the Florida sunlight streaming through airport windows. During the drive to the Everglades Lodge, we caught up on the weeks since our last phone call. I shared news of the pregnancy and Kevin and Vanessa's plans to move into my building. Robert updated me on his daughter's family and recent photography projects. I've been thinking about your portfolio website, he said as we turned onto the narrow road leading to the lodge. I have a friend who designs them professionally. She'd be happy to help set it up. That's generous, but I'm not sure my work is ready for that level of exposure. It absolutely is. His conviction was unwavering. But no pressure, just something to consider. The lodge exceeded my expectations. A collection of rustic but comfortable cabins surrounding a main building, all nestled on the edge of the vast Everglades ecosystem. Our accommodations were separate but adjacent cabins, an arrangement that felt appropriately respectful of our still-evolving relationship. Rest up, Robert advised as we parted for the evening. Tomorrow, we start before dawn to catch the morning light on the water. In my cabin, I unpacked methodically, arranging camera equipment for the early start. Through the screened windows came a symphony of unfamiliar sounds, chirping insects, calling frogs, the occasional splash of water. So different from my quiet condo, yet somehow soothing in its wild rhythms. The next 2 weeks unfolded in a pattern of early mornings and late evenings, chasing the best light for photography. Robert proved an excellent guide and companion, knowledgeable without being condescending, attentive without being overwhelming. We traveled by airboat through wetlands teeming with wildlife, waded carefully in shallow waters to photograph rare birds, spent hours in silent observation, waiting for the perfect moment when light and subject aligned. There, Robert whispered one morning, pointing to where an alligator glided silently through mist-covered water. Wait for it. I tracked the prehistoric creature through my telephoto lens, breath held, fingers steady on the shutter button. When the rising sun broke through the cypress trees, illuminating the scene in golden light, I captured a series of images that would become my most successful to date. But the Everglades trip offered more than just photographic opportunities. In the evenings, gathered with other photographers in the lodge's common room, Robert and I shared meals, stories, and gradually, more personal confidences. I was married for 38 years, he told me on our 5th night, as we sat on the lodge's screened porch after dinner. Catherine was diagnosed with ALS 3 years after I retired. We'd had such plans: travel, grandchildren, growing old together. He sipped his coffee. Instead, I became her caregiver until the end. I'm sorry, I said softly. That must have been incredibly difficult. The hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most important. His eyes held mine in the dim porch light. She made me promise not to disappear into grief afterward. See the world for both of us, she said. Is that why you travel so much? He nodded. Initially, yes. It was a way of honoring her. But eventually, it became something I needed for myself. He studied me thoughtfully. What about you? After your husband died? Different circumstances, I said. Frank's heart attack was sudden. No warning, no goodbye. Kevin was only 19. I had to keep functioning, keep working. No time to grieve properly. No time for anything except survival. I traced the rim of my coffee cup. Even after Kevin was grown, I just kept going in the same patterns. Work, save, sacrifice. Until the lawsuit settlement forced me to reconsider everything. Forced you? In the best possible way. I smiled, remembering that pivotal moment after the wedding. It made me ask questions I'd been avoiding for decades. Like what? Like who am I when I'm not defined by what I do for others? What do I want from this one precious life? Robert's hand found mine in the darkness, his palm warm and slightly rough against my fingers. And have you found answers? Some. I turned my hand to intertwine our fingers. I'm still discovering others. On our last day in the Everglades, we visited a remote observation platform at sunset. The vast wetlands stretched before us, painted in shades of gold and crimson as the sun descended. Beautiful, isn't it? Robert stood beside me, his camera momentarily forgotten. Beyond words. I lowered my own camera, wanting to experience the moment directly, not through a viewfinder. April. His voice carried a new note that made me turn toward him. These 2 weeks have been significant for me. For me too. I'm not sure what happens next, he admitted. We live in different states. We have established lives, families. But I'd like to explore possibilities, if you're willing. The setting sun caught his profile, highlighting the strength in his features, the kindness in his eyes. Here was a man who understood loss, renewal, the preciousness of time, who saw me clearly and valued what he saw. I'm willing, I said simply, taking his hand once more. As darkness fell over the Everglades, we stood together in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the vast Florida sky. Tomorrow we would drive to Atlanta to meet his daughter's family, then return to our separate homes. The future held questions without easy answers, logistics, compromises, adjustments. But standing there in the gathering darkness, I felt no anxiety about the uncertainties ahead. Life had taught me that the most beautiful journeys rarely follow predictable paths. I thought of the long road that had brought me here, from a factory floor to a wedding reception's dumpsters to this magical wilderness, from a woman who gave everything away to one who had finally learned to claim her share of life's abundance. Whatever came next would be another chapter in this unexpected story, one I was finally writing for myself, in my own hand, one day at a time. In the golden light of possibility, that was more than enough.
Trước khi khép lại câu chuyện này, mình muốn bạn ở lại với mình thêm một chút, như một cuộc trò chuyện thực sự, không vội vàng, không kịch bản. Đôi khi mình nghĩ điều đặc biệt nhất của những câu chuyện như thế này không phải là cao trào, không phải là cái kết, mà là những cảm xúc còn đọng lại sau khi mọi thứ đã kết thúc. Bạn có bao giờ xem xong một câu chuyện rồi tự nhiên im lặng vài giây không? Không phải vì không có gì để nói, mà là vì có quá nhiều thứ đang chạy trong đầu. Mình thì có. Và mỗi lần như vậy mình lại tự hỏi ngoài kia có bao nhiêu câu chuyện giống như thế này mà chúng ta chưa từng được nghe. Bao nhiêu con người đã trải qua những điều khó khăn như vậy nhưng không có ai kể lại. Bao nhiêu người phụ nữ đã phải mạnh mẽ trong im lặng mà không ai thực sự nhìn thấy. Đó là điều khiến mình luôn suy nghĩ rất nhiều sau mỗi video. Bởi vì sự mạnh mẽ không phải lúc nào cũng ồn ào. Nó không phải lúc nào cũng là những khoảnh khắc đứng trên sân khấu hay những chiến thắng rõ ràng để mọi người vỗ tay. Đôi khi sự mạnh mẽ chỉ đơn giản là thức dậy vào mỗi buổi sáng khi bạn không còn chút năng lượng nào, tiếp tục cố gắng khi mọi thứ dường như đang chống đối lại bạn. Mỉm cười dù bên trong bạn đang rất mệt mỏi. Và điều đặc biệt là rất nhiều người phụ nữ ngoài kia đang làm điều đó mỗi ngày. Không ai biết, không ai hỏi, nhưng họ vẫn tiếp tục. Những nhân vật trong câu chuyện bạn vừa xem có thể là hư cấu, nhưng cảm xúc của họ thì không hề hư cấu. Nỗi đau là sự thật, sự tổn thương là thật, và cả sự kiên cường cũng là thật. Đó là lý do tại sao mình luôn muốn kể những câu chuyện như thế này. Không phải để làm mọi thứ trở nên buồn hơn, mà để chúng ta có thể hiểu hơn, hiểu rằng đằng sau mỗi con người là cả một hành trình mà chúng ta không thể nhìn thấy. Hiểu rằng đôi khi sự im lặng của một người không phải là họ yếu đuối, mà là họ đã phải chịu đựng quá nhiều. Và hiểu rằng sự vươn lên không phải lúc nào cũng hoàn hảo. Có những lần họ sẽ gục ngã, có những lúc họ sẽ nghi ngờ chính mình, có những khoảnh khắc họ muốn từ bỏ tất cả. Nhưng rồi họ vẫn đứng dậy, không phải vì họ không sợ, mà là vì họ không còn lựa chọn nào khác ngoài việc phải tiếp tục. Và mình nghĩ đó mới là định nghĩa thực sự của sức mạnh. Không phải là không bao giờ yếu đuối, mà là vẫn bước tiếp, ngay cả khi bạn đang yếu đuối nhất. Có thể khi nghe đến đây, bạn sẽ thấy câu chuyện này không chỉ là về một nhân vật nữa, mà là về rất nhiều con người. Có thể là một người bạn của bạn, một người thân trong gia đình, hoặc thậm chí là chính bạn. Và nếu bạn từng trải qua những cảm xúc tương tự thì mình muốn bạn biết một điều, bạn không hề đơn độc. Có thể câu chuyện của bạn chưa được kể, có thể không ai thực sự hiểu hết những gì bạn đã đi qua, nhưng điều đó không làm cho những gì bạn trải qua trở nên ít quan trọng hơn. Ngược lại, nó càng cho thấy bạn đã mạnh mẽ như thế nào để đi đến đây. Và đó cũng là lý do mình luôn hy vọng khi bạn xem được những video này, bạn không chỉ xem để giải trí, mà bạn sẽ cảm nhận, bạn sẽ dừng lại một chút để nghĩ, để nhìn mọi thứ chậm lại, để hiểu hơn về con người và về chính mình. Bởi vì đôi khi một câu chuyện có thể không thay đổi cả thế giới, nhưng nó có thể thay đổi cách bạn nhìn nhận về thế giới. Và như thế đã là rất đủ rồi. Nếu bạn đã đi cùng mình đến tận đây, thật sự mình rất trân trọng điều đó. Không phải ai cũng có đủ kiên nhẫn để lắng nghe đến tận giây phút cuối cùng. Và việc bạn vẫn ở đây có nghĩa là câu chuyện này đã chạm đến bạn, dù chỉ một chút. Nếu bạn muốn, bạn có thể tiếp tục đồng hành cùng mình trong những video tiếp theo. Vẫn sẽ là những câu chuyện như thế này. Những câu chuyện có thể sẽ khiến bạn suy nghĩ nhiều hơn, có thể khiến bạn cảm thấy nặng lòng, nhưng cũng có thể mang lại cho bạn một góc nhìn khác. Và trước khi kết thúc, mình chỉ muốn nói một điều thôi. Đôi khi cuộc sống sẽ không công bằng, đôi khi mọi thứ sẽ xảy ra theo cách mà bạn không thể kiểm soát. Nhưng điều bạn luôn có thể kiểm soát là việc bạn chọn đứng dậy như thế nào sau tất cả. Dù chậm cũng được, dù mệt cũng được, chỉ cần bạn vẫn bước tiếp thì bạn đã mạnh mẽ hơn bạn nghĩ rất nhiều rồi. Cảm ơn vì các bạn đã ở đây, đã lắng nghe và đã cùng mình đi qua những câu chuyện này. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong những câu chuyện tiếp theo. Bye!